Hello to all my subscribers, NewyorkSteelo with part 2 of deep sand beds in marine aquarium systems. Now I only have 10 minutes to cover this. There's so much to cover when it comes to what can go wrong with deep sand beds. I'm going to try to cover as much as I can within this 10-minute period so that I can make this a 2-part video. This is part 2, of course, and in part 1 you guys observed a brand new system with a brand new deep sand bed, and now I'm going to be showing you that the air pockets, it's pretty much the same here. It works pretty much the same as it does on a sugar fine sand bed, only this grain size is just slightly a little bigger. Over on the 30-gallon tank, the grain size was less than half of a millimeter. In this tank, it's anywhere from half of a millimeter all the way up to 1.7 millimeters. If you start to add a deep sand bed bigger than 1.7 to 2 millimeters in grain size, you're gonna have a big problem, because 1.7 to 2 millimeters or bigger is considered to be crushed coral. You do not want to have crushed coral on a deep sand bed. Now, before we continue quickly, I wanted to show you guys, how do you know if your deep sand bed is alive? Of course, you're going to see the life within the sand bed, and I'm going to show you some of that now, and it'll give you an idea. You're also going to see the streaks and the worms and the caves and everything within the deep sand bed. And how do you know if your deep sand bed is clean or not? I'm going to show you that as well. But first, let me show you the first part of what I spoke about, which is an undisturbed area of the deep sand bed. I have never disturbed this area on the side here or on the back or anywhere near the middle of the aquarium. Now here you can see worms. Nothing but life, nothing but caves, nothing but streaks, gas pockets, air bubbles, tunnels. You can see it with your own eyes here. All of these are basically tunnels and different types of worms living within the deep sand bed, which are very beneficial and the necessary critters to keep your deep sand bed alive. Now, let's take a look at the other side here. This area has never been interrupted as well. I've never siphoned my deep sand bed. Never have, never will. And I'm going to show you guys, now that I've shown you what a mature deep sand bed looks like undisturbed, I'm going to show you guys how clean my deep sand bed is. Now I'm going to take this here, which is basically an algae scraper, and I'm going to bring it into the aquarium, and I'm going to disturb the deep sand bed as much as I can down to the bottom level. Now, as I disturb the deep sand bed, you're going to see the gas bubbles being released. You're going to see them come out. You see that? These gas bubbles are basically the waste of the bacteria that lives beneath the first ½ inch of the sand bed, and they eat nitrates and release it as a form of gas bubbles. Now, just to show you guys how clean this sand bed is, if I were to dig in deep and just kind of like move the entire sand bed, all you're going to see is just gas bubbles coming up. You're not going to see any black silt coming out, or basically, in order to know if your deep sand bed is healthy, the deep sand bed should be, when you move it, it should be exactly as it was when you first added it to your system. Now, we all know that had this been a crushed coral sand bed and I've been feeding, it would look black when I moved the sand bed. I just showed you that when you do it right, when you add real good quality live rock to your system, you only have one other way to go, and that's up. You're going to be successful with the deep sand bed. Your deep sand bed is going to maintain itself clean. And mind you, and I repeat myself, I have never siphoned the deep sand bed, and never will. Because if I do so, what's going to happen is that I'm going to be killing the beneficial life that lives within the deep sand bed, keeping the sand bed alive and making it work properly. Now, let's talk a little bit about what can go wrong with a deep sand bed. Now, you saw me disturb the deep sand bed, right? My main mistake was when I first set up the system back in March of 2008. So this marine aquarium is going to be approximately 3 years old in March. Now, my main mistake was that algae loves to grow wherever light is available. And of course, when you have a deep sand bed, you see here, this is a 4-inch deep sand bed, the light reflects off of the glass and algae tends to grow in this area. And me, I like the clean sand look. It is recommended that you never disturb your deep sand bed. However, I disagree with that analogy. In a sense, it's true. You should not disturb your deep sand bed if, and there's always an if it is a brand new deep sand bed, which is beginning to develop the life needed to keep the deep sand bed properly working. My main mistake was that I moved the deep sand bed in the front area here only, just to get rid of some of that algae that grows in the glass and give it a clean tank look. By doing that, I trapped a lot of the little critters that live within the first top inch, and I also trapped some detritus and waste beneath the sand bed, causing that waste to decompose. And the next time I went to move the sand bed, I smelled rotten egg. And let me tell you, if you have a deep sand bed smelling rotten egg, or watching areas of the deep sand bed which are completely black in the lower levels is really not a good thing. That's an indication of hydrogen sulfide forming within the sand bed. It's basically formed when you have dead spots within the sand bed, areas where there's no life to keep it moving, to keep the bed aerated. There isn't any necessary critters that keep the sand bed alive, creating a hydrogen sulfide spot. And if this hydrogen sulfide goes into your water column and you disturb the sand bed, it can wipe out your system, hands down. You got to know what you're doing. You have to be patient. I can now go ahead and move the sand bed as much as I want in the front area, because it's got so much life within the deep sand bed, and that a hydrogen sulfide spot will never form, because of the fact that in a 24-hour period, this sand bed is probably turned over about 5 times at least, I would say, because of the amount of critters in there. So this, I hope, that's one of the things that can go wrong with a deep sand bed: hydrogen sulfide. It can become a detritus trap. None of this will happen to you if you take my advice and you add good quality live rock to seed the sand bed with the necessary critters needed to make sure that your sand bed works properly. And with that said, I hope I've covered some of the good and the bad on deep sand beds. I'm a major fan of deep sand beds. We'll always have a deep sand beds. There is a lot of debates online. About 50% of you say, "Oh hell no, I'm not." Deep sand beds are a problem. If you do it the right way and you are patient, I can guarantee you will be successful. With that said, this is NewyorkSteelo with another video. Stay tuned for my next video, which I am about to do. It's going to be on calcium and alkalinity. Very important. I've done some experiments and some results, so I only have 10 minutes. So with that said, stay tuned for the next video. Peace.